Good morning. This is John from the Springs Mennonite Church. And I'm here today to continue talking about this guy named Moses. I'm here in the middle of the first week. As I said, I want to do this week and next week. So I hope you'll hang around and maybe learn something from it. Today, I want to look at chapter 7 of Exodus and beginning with verse 10. So Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and did what the Lord commanded them. Aaron threw down his staff before Pharaoh and his officials, and it became a serpent. Then Pharaoh called on his own wise men and sorcerers, and these Egyptian magicians did the same thing with their magic. They threw down their staffs, which also became serpents. But then Aaron's staff swallowed up their staffs. Pharaoh's heart, however, remained hard. He still refused to listen, just as the Lord had predicted. Now, this is the first encounter that Moses has with Pharaoh after God told him, "Go get my people." And here we find Aaron with Moses because Moses complained, "I'm not good enough. Find somebody to go with me." So God sent Aaron with him. And Moses confronts Pharaoh and says, "Let my people go." And Pharaoh says, "No." So here we have this thing with the staffs that become serpents. Now, I know magicians do some interesting things, and it all looks real, though it really isn't. Nobody can do supernatural things with magic. But in this case, they did. This staff became a serpent, probably a cobra. That's what would have been common in that part of the world. And Pharaoh has his magicians. They do the same thing. Theirs become serpents. But yet Moses' serpent staff, excuse me, eats up the other two. So now there's only one staff left. Imagine if you're sitting there watching this. Imagine if, in some way or another, you could be a fly on the wall and saw this happening. What would you think? Well, of course, we don't really know because we weren't there. But I would think, okay? I would think, I don't know what's going on here, but this guy Moses is someone you don't want to push away. I don't know what he's doing, but that was amazing. This guy you better listen to. But Pharaoh doesn't. He says, "Sorry, I'm not going to do it." And it says here that he refused to listen to the Lord, just as God had predicted. Moses knew this wasn't the end of the journey. He knew he was going to get turned down. But he also knew that God still had a plan. You see, when one door closes, God really does open another one. Now, maybe it doesn't open right at that same second. And maybe it's not even the same kind of door. But God doesn't leave us to our own attempts to figure things out. As we've read before, God says, "I'm still here. I'm with you." That's what he said to Moses. And indeed he was. Now, if we read the rest of the story, which I'm not going to read, you can follow along in the other chapters of Exodus. It's a long read, and I don't have that much time for it. But there were 9 more plagues to come. And after each of the next 8, Pharaoh takes the same position. No, I'm not going to do what God says. Now, I've had some experiences in my life where I have said something like, Well, boy, if that didn't get your attention, I don't know what it would take to do that. And maybe you've had something similar. Maybe you've had something happen, good, bad, in between. And God is trying to grab you by the collar and say, hey, pay attention to me. And you didn't do it. Well, then you're just like Pharaoh. In fact, Pharaoh's just like you. And to be truthful, we're all in the same boat together because we're all stubborn and we're all hard-headed. And at some point in our lives, God's going to ask us to do something, and we're not going to be so quick to say yes. So we know from these other chapters, on the 10th plague, Pharaoh finally says yes. Of course, it took the death of his own firstborn to get him to say yes, and that's a pretty high price. I have a friend who's constantly in trouble. You kind of have to think, doesn't this guy ever get it? But I don't think he does. It's always somebody else's fault. And as long as you're willing to blame someone else, nothing good's going to come from it. Pharaoh is determined that he's not going to bow to the wishes of this guy, Moses. Now, when I started out, he was a Hebrew who was adopted pretty much by a princess. And Pharaoh knows that story. In fact, Pharaoh's the one that kicked him out of Egypt. And I guess he's saying, I'm not going to listen to you because I don't care what you say. I know who you are. Well, he doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know what God's done in his life. And God wants each of us to not go through all these trials and go through all these hassles and just say, okay, what is it you want me to do? And then go and do it. We'll read later, starting next week, how Moses did what God said. So I'd like to invite you to look at your life today. How quick are you to listen to God and obey God? Now, I know some of you listening are angry at him and have been for a long, long time. And I want to say to you, I understand that. I really do, more than you'll ever know. But I'd also like to invite you to look beyond that and see the God of the Bible who loves you and cares for you. God wants you and me and everybody to walk with him hand in hand and experience life together. We know from this story how badly it turned out for Pharaoh. Don't know what would have happened if he'd have just agreed in the first place. We don't always know the future, but we do know this. God is still with you, just like he was with Moses. Will you think about that? Hope you have a wonderful day. I really do. I hope your day is just super, super special. And if there's anything we can do to help out, you call us. If we can do something, we'll do it. That's a promise. Thanks for listening. I hope tomorrow you'll have a better day than even today. God bless you. I'll talk to you again.